being here with us on this Friday. And Hammer, how close was last night's game to what you wanted going in?
I think it was perfect for what the Kings needed. Like, you knew they were going to come out slow because that's kind of the All-Star break. Everybody is a little funky and out of it. It just, you get out of a rhythm when you miss a week of basketball. And then for them to find themselves, but not have to put out so much energy that it, will bleed over into tonight's game. I thought it was good. They needed a scrimmage game, and sorry, Portland Trailblazers, that's exactly what that was. That was a scrimmage game.
Were you ever worried about the game last night?
No. When who's their center? Eubanks. When Eubanks turned around and tried to do like a baby jump hook from 6 feet and shot at 3 feet, that's when I knew, oh, this game's over. Like, I got to be honest, I laughed, which drew like multiple media members looking at me. I laughed because I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he missed that shot. I mean, you're almost 7 foot tall. We talk about this with Kevin Huerter. Kevin Huerter has this ability to get in the key and actually do things that like a guy who's 6'7" should do. Like, it might not always be pretty, but it's effective. Watching Drew Eubanks turn around and it wasn't even a brick. I mean, he just missed the iron by like 3 feet. It was just embarrassing. And that's kind of like, you don't want to see a lot of that down the stretch, but the Kings don't have to worry about that either. Like, their schedule dictates that they're not going to face a lot of the rough, late season non-competitive games that they have in the past. So, yeah, was it like a couple of years ago, the Kings went up against OKC and Moses Brown, and he was just out there like clubbing people. Like, what are you doing? You're going to hurt somebody. It's like when you go play, at a local gym and you start playing and a football player shows up and he doesn't know how to play basketball at all. So he thinks it's time to just like mug you and like hug you the whole time. You're like, what is happening? That happens in the NBA late in the season, where you get some bad players who shouldn't be out there on the court playing major minutes, and you always worry that they're going to hurt somebody. But again, the Kings, this is one of the few games the Kings will have that they'll face something like that.
Normally we point out the numbers. We didn't do that today. 14 threes, 14 made threes,
good stuff.
27 assists.
There we go.
So good numbers all around for Sacramento. I also didn't realize last night how efficient they were. 54% from the field. No one took more than 15 shots. That was De'Aaron Fox, and he was 11 of 15. James, 5 straight games with 30-plus points for De'Aaron Fox. Now spread over multiple weeks with the All-Star game in the middle. What is this stretch telling you about De'Aaron's season?
He just realized that it's all too easy, that he can just go do whatever he wants anytime he wants, because that's what it looked like. It was all in the third quarter last night. He was a little quiet coming through the first half, but 14 points in the third quarter. And a lot of it came after he went out of the game and then came back in with like 3 minutes left. He just hit the gas pedal, and there's just no one that can stop him. And, Portland they have length, and they have some defensive-minded players. Mm-hmm. You didn't see him last night. Like, Fox was just too good. And, that's something I think he's learning. It's something that he took into the All-Star break knowing that, like, all he has to do is throttle up and no one can stick with him. He's got 5 in a row, but he's also 7 out of 8 that he's had 30-plus. And I think the ninth game, he scored 29. So there's only one game, and he scored, I think, 16, and it was because they blew somebody out. And that's the only reason he didn't have 30 in that game. Like, the level he's playing at right now, if he can start hitting the 3-ball again and shoot, even 37, 38%, and like these last 24 games, like, he's going to cakewalk to 30 a game. So, yeah, it's fun to watch. He's on fire right now. And as long as he has that mentality, that killer mentality that we saw last night, like, I don't think that he's going to be really, really good down the stretch.
I talked about it earlier, and I was just like, man, he gets everything. He's ready for everything that's needed right now to be a franchise player. And like I said earlier, maybe he wasn't always there. Maybe he, just didn't click with them. Hey, I got to carry this team at this time, and I got to pick up my game here. They need my scoring. It can't be the distributor, whatever. But Damian pointed it out. There was, probably in that second quarter, I think you said, where he was like, we got to turn it up now. I know I'm fourth quarter Fox and I get my other guys involved, but it's time for me to turn this up a little bit. And that's just indicative of me. He's ready, man. I talked about it yesterday. He's ready to lead this team, lead this franchise to another level.
Yeah, and I'll point out too, the game is much easier when there's two of you that are great. Like it's one thing to be like a pillar of a organization, and we call them cornerstones, right? So corner, but in most buildings there's at least four corners, and for a long time it felt like we kept saying the cornerstone of the franchise was realistically one guy. And when you're carrying all of the weight, and that's not saying he's doing everything on the court and he's the only player and all that stuff, but like when the other team is game planning to face the Sacramento Kings, it was like, okay, De'Aaron Fox, and we're just gonna let Buddy Hield shoot as much as he wants. Like those are things that like you have to think about when you're gonna play the Kings. It's how do we slow De'Aaron Fox? Now it's how do we slow De'Aaron Fox, and how do we take away some of what Domantas Sabonis does? And so when you're splitting up the scouting report and you're focusing on more than one player, it changes the dynamic greatly. And so I think he feels that. I think he feels like he now has somebody else who's standing there holding up the walls with him. And that's big because it doesn't have to be him every night. It can be someone else. But it can also be him because they have someone else. It's all much easier for him at this point.
Watching De'Aaron last night, James, made me wonder if De'Aaron is even better if he's better than he was last year, or if he just recognizes, as you two were just talking about, the amount of talent around him, which he now has. We talk about the confidence that he has in himself and his ability to score. He said it very, very early in the season. I have the ability to get any shot I want to, and he has shown that like time and time again this year. But unlike last year, this year he has confidence in his teammates, whether it's Domas or Malik or Keegan. He has Domas and guys wearing Sacramento Kings jerseys, and I think that elevates him a little bit more, and it's making his game stand out. He doesn't have those. We talk about like De'Aaron's got to put together a full season. He's got to be doing exactly what he's doing right now. He's got to do that all year long. Well, yeah, it's hard to do it when you're carrying a bunch of dead weight, half of which don't even want to be here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'd also say this, like, you guys always talk about like the 14 3-pointers, right? Well, that's those stats. Like, it's not like every team in the league doesn't have access to the stats. They understand that too. They understand that in order for them to slow down the Sacramento Kings, they've got to take away the three. So now we add, I mean, even if you're not looking at the Kings having a big three, you can look at the idea of the 3-point shot as their third. So if you got to slow down De'Aaron and his speed, you got to slow down Domas, somehow keep him off the glass, somehow keep him from orchestrating the offense. But then you also have to slow down that 3-point shot. So you're right. By having better players around him, it has opened a door for him to excel. This isn't all on him. And he's using, screens as well as he has his entire career. The Kings are using, all of these DHOs and these, like the motion of the offense to get everybody wide open looks. But when that guy gets downhill, we saw it last night on a straight line drive right down the middle. He cut through like three guys, and he went in and out like laterally, like between everyone, and kept making moves all the way through while flying right down the middle of the lane and he went up and then went right to the other side of the basket and finished. And it was so impressive. Like the change of direction, change of speed that he's able to do is is crazy, and it's fun to watch. He's like realistically, he's finding out who he can be at this moment, and we're getting to see like sort of the nexus of who De'Aaron Fox can be.
What did you think of Terrence Davis last night? Our guy TD. I mean, it seemed
it's
like
my favorite new ham segment. Say something nice about TD.
TD was out there. He provided a spark for this group, man. He came out there and provided a spark off the bench, woke everybody up, and did his thing. What you think, James? What you think?
Okay, so the first quarter was absolutely reckless. Like in the first quarter, he had 9 points.
Yep.
He had 3 turnovers.
Yep.
He had 2 personal fouls. It's like, welcome to the Terrence Davis experience. Like, you got everything. And that was all in like 5 minutes of play.
But it was an awesome 5 minutes.
Yeah, he's fun.
5 minutes.
And then late, when Demonis needed all of his assists to get to the triple-double, he just kept feeding TD in the 2-man game, and TD kept hitting the threes. It was fun to watch. Like, he can be a valuable member of this team going down the stretch. I totally believe that. But he has to be consistent and keep doing what he's been doing, specifically on the defensive end. He has to be active on the defensive end as well. And Mike Brown talked about it last night. It's not like he makes a mistake. It's the second and third and fourth mistake where it starts to wear on you. And then we had the moment in postgame. I don't know if you guys saw his postgame. I didn't I switched bags yesterday, so I forgot my tripod. So all I had was a mini tripod, and I put it on a chair out in front of me and Brendan. So we were recording, and it ends up like my video is just like the tops of their heads because it was just too low. So I didn't put video out last night. Yeah, usually Brendan the keyboard warrior just like slaying that thing the whole time. Like it's like him and Scott Howard Cooper. Nobody hits a keyboard harder. Like you're like, man, what are you doing over there? And anyway, Terrence Davis had just this incredible moment in post game where I thought he was so much more honest than anyone else has been. So we asked, what are your expectations? What are you expecting? All these things from the players over the last couple of days when we're at practice. We had 2 days of practice. We had a shoot around. Like we've seen these guys a lot just since they've been back from the break, 3-4 days in a row. And, like you got the Malik Monk, like basic answer. Like, well, we just got to win. Okay. Well, how are you going to do that? Well, it doesn't matter. We just have to win. And I'm like, okay, I get that. And you get, Sabonis, who it feels like Sabonis interviews feels like speed dating. Like he just rapid fire, ask a question, answer, ask a question. I mean, he might feel.
I just don't think he's super comfortable with all that stuff.
It's good for writing when you go back and transcribe his quotes. He's actually really good for that because he gives you really succinct, brief answers that fit into a sentence and a half. And so it does actually work where Mike Brown gives you 4 paragraphs for every answer. Sabonis is very quick. And you also get rapid fire, 14, 15 questions in a 2-minute session. But Sabonis, he's kind of been the same way. We just have to continue to do what we've been doing all season long and just, continue to get better on the defensive end. And then he said, I've got to rebound better. We've got to rebound better, especially on the defensive end. We can't give up all these offensive rebounds. Anyway, but when we got to Terrence Davis, yeah. And then he came out and just okay, I said I was going to rebound better. Now I'm the rebound god. I got this. That's what I love about Sabonis. It is very much it's rudimentary. Yeah, I play basketball. It's okay, I get it. He goes out and he does whatever he says. Anyway, I'll read the quote that Terrence Davis had from last night. And, the thing about Terrence is he's honest and he wears it on his sleeve. And sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes he kind of gets lost. But last night he said, Sacramento hasn't been in this position in almost 2 decades. And
if you hold that thought, sorry to interrupt you, James. If you hold that thought right there, I can actually play the clip for you.
Oh, you've got it. Okay, play it.
Yeah, we had this pulled up because it caught our attention in the same exact way. It caught yours. Here's TD last night following the game.
Walking on the court and knowing that you're in a position to do something that has been done in, almost 2 decades, that should light a fire in you. You know, for me, it's honestly, man, I was on the All-Star break just thinking about it while I was, somewhere else. I was just thinking about it and, just, trying to put into perspective how important these last few games are. So this is definitely major. This is something, special for sure. We have, like I said, it's been almost 2 decades. So it's important, man. This is everything,
There's Terrence Davis right there, Hammer.
Yeah, I just thought it was such an honest, like heartfelt answer where it wasn't canned. It wasn't like trying to give you an answer that, no one really has an answer to. You know, he just basically lays it out there like, yeah, it's weighing on him. He understands it. He feels it when he walks on the court. And I think that more than anything else, that's what you want. If you're like Kings fans are like, it's really Sacramento's a white collar, like the whole downtown area, but Sacramento as a whole is more of a blue collar town. And you want your players to want it like you want it, right? It's like the frustration of dealing with some of these professional athletes where you just go, man, if when I was 22 years old, I was 7 foot tall and could jump out of the building and had all the athleticism, all the things that you have, like where would I be? And you get frustrated with them. And then you have a guy like this who's like, it's almost like he's attached to the fan base in a different way where he gets it in a way that they get it. Where a lot of, even like this season's, we've had this weird vibe where they keep saying, well, you have to remember these players haven't been, it's a 16-year playoff drought, but these players haven't been part of that whole 16 years. It's like, yeah, that doesn't matter. Your fans have been part of it for 16 years. It doesn't matter. What the fans want is for their team to feel like they do. So when someone says that, oh, we haven't been part of it, like it's almost like you're giving yourself an excuse. And fans don't want to hear that. Like, I don't want to hear it as I'm sitting there listening to it. It's like, yeah, man, like, yeah, you need to break this streak. These fans deserve better. You're part of the organization. Doesn't matter if you've been here on a 10-day contract or for 5 years. You need to be better, and your fans deserve better. And I think that's what I got from Terrence. It's not just the words. It was, you could feel him feeling the same way that everyone else in Sacramento has felt. And I thought that was pretty brilliant.
Nah, that was
Casey,
awesome.
one more quick thing on TD. Just because I want to make sure James is aware of this. You mentioned the 9 points and 3 turnovers in the first quarter. You know how many turnovers he ended the game with?
3.
He ended the game with 3.
Yeah.
Let him
That
get
first.
some-
It was crazy sloppy.
Clearly, he was emotional. Like clearly, he went into that game with some emotion. And I think one of the turnovers, I guess this is a double whammy. It was a turnover and it was an offensive foul where he just drilled somebody back to the basket trying to get a bucket.
That's all right.
That's all
That's
right.
all right.
That's all right. That's right. That's it.
Yeah, and again, that's when we talk about Terrence and we talk about Malik Monk. I put him in the same boat as far as like they're mistake players and stuff. It's not just the turnovers. It's not just the missed shots. Realistically, it's the missed assignments that drive the coaching staff like bonkers. Because you can have just like Terrence comes in and he plays like he came in at I think 7 minutes left in the first quarter because that team had no energy and they needed something. But that means that he played a big chunk of his time with Sabonis. If you make 3 mistakes or 2 mistakes on the defensive end and you let your guy go right at Sabonis, you can be the reason why Sabonis only plays 25 minutes that night. And it can be that quick. And, Sabonis is going to make his own mistakes and his own fouls on certain plays. But this team has been giving, like, wide open runs at their all-star center all season long. And that's part of why Terrence doesn't play. He makes mistakes. He gambles in the wrong way. And he leads to, like, the bigger picture is Sabonis getting in foul trouble. And so I don't think he made those mistakes. I thought he was attentive defensively and he was okay. He came in with too much energy, too hot, which his team needed, but it also led to a couple of turnovers.
That was Kenny the day after the All-Star game.
It happens. It happens.
It happens.
We've said it, a number of different times. I think you can win with Terrence TD. And I think that he could be really vital for what this team does with his energy, with his versatility. I'd love to see more minutes with him and Monk playing, on the court at the same time, bringing a different level of energy. I know James heard that. He might have had an aneurysm just even thinking about all the defensive mistakes and wild plays going on. But I think the upside of what they could be, which was like last night, where they're giving you 35 off the bench. I think that could be something special for this team. I'd like to see more of them playing together in these final 24 games.
Yeah, and I'm going to point this out. Someone says Herter makes mistakes too. Herter makes a couple of mistakes here and there. I'm not going to say that Herter's mistake free. I mean, that would be absolutely ludicrous. But like if we look at per 36, Monk is at 3.1 turnovers per game, and Terrence Davis is at 2.4 turnovers per game. Herter's at 1.6 turnovers per game, so basically half of what Monk does, and like 60% of what Terrence Davis does. And I'll even say like where Terrence and Malik make mistakes on the defensive end, mistakes and limitations are different. And so, yes, does Kevin Herter get beat on the defensive end? I've never said that he doesn't. He does get beat. But a lot of times when he's getting beat, it's not because he's out of position. It's because he gets beat. Because whether it's his lack of athleticism or his opponent's incredible athleticism, when we're talking about Monk and we're talking about Terrence Davis, is usually that they're actually making mistakes, or they're out of position, or they're gambling in a weird way. I don't think that that's the case with Herter. And it doesn't matter. You can't have like your whole team with just Kevin Herters, just like you can't have your whole team with just Malik Monk's and Terrence Davis's. You need that excitement, that energy, that guy who takes a bunch of risks, just like you need the other guy who doesn't take a bunch of risks, who can get beat, but it's for a different reason.
Yeah, and real quick, what we see from Terrence is one of those guys. I've talked about it in the past, and Malik is the same way. You talk about their turnover numbers per 36. You got to just let them be them. You gotta when you play them, you gotta be like, they're gonna make some crazy passes sometimes. They're gonna make some head scratching decisions, but if I let them play the way they want to play, the reward may be greater than a mishap here and there. And where we saw that earlier in the year was when TD was scared to death to do anything.
Yeah.
Because if he got one turnover or one missed assignment, he'd be out. Then he's triple pump faking on a three and traveling because he don't know what to do. Like, I'm of the belief, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but just the way I go about it, you got to go, guys like that, you got to take the good with the bad, because I think the good far outweighs the bad at the end of the day. And you got to accept, hey, there's going to be some turnovers. I'm going to yell at them about it, but I'm going to let you know you're still in the game. You're not losing no minutes off of this. Continue to play your game. I'm going to coach you through it, but you got to let them be them.
I'm going to respond to that with, I agree, you have to let them be them, but you can't not coach them. You have to coach them hard, and you have to demand that they get better. They have to get better just like everyone else does. And just because that's who they are and they're going to make some mistakes, that doesn't mean you can't clean up a lot of what they're doing. And, sure, I don't want you throwing the ball into the stands 3 times a game. That's one thing. But the coaching aspect of it, pulling Terrence Davis aside during timeouts and saying, look, man, I cannot have you incorrectly defend the pick and roll again and again and again. Those are things that you have to keep coaching. And look, I think what we're seeing right now is the fruits of labor that Mike Brown has put in and that Terrence Davis has put in and the rest of the coaching staff has put into working with Terrence to make him a better player overall. So while you don't want to take away what makes him him and makes him like the individual basketball player that has the athleticism and the crazy things that Terrence Davis can do, you still need him to be better at the basics and better at the things that you can coach into him. And so, while I agree with you, I think there is something to the way that Mike has handled this situation. And we're finally seeing sort of part of the finished product that we can see for this season for Terrence. is that Mike Brown has reined him in certain ways where he can be better defensively. He can be better sort of schematically and in the flow of the game on both sides of the court. But he can still be who he is as an individual and still do some of the crazy things that he's able to do.
Let's talk more Kings basketball with James Ham. Specifically, the game coming up in about 4 hours.
I'm ready for this
Kings are in Los Angeles tonight to take on the Los Angeles Clippers. So we'll talk about that with our 1320 Kings insider and creator of the Kings Beat, our man James Ham, here on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320. Appreciate you guys being in here on a Friday, man. This is a great audience to have on a Friday, man. We thank you so much. Hit the thumbs up button and the subscribe buttons and all that good stuff. And I know we try to say it a lot, but thank you guys for the endless support, man.
James, we asked this earlier. I don't know if it was on air or off there. I can't remember, but you think the Kings can re-sign Terrence Davis?
Yeah. I mean, I think he would like to be here. And, again, we always get into these debates. Fans get into these debates. If Terrence Davis is this player for the last 25 games of the season, right, and he's averaging, 10, 11, 12 points a game, and he's bringing energy, people are going to be like, oh, man, Terrence going to make like $8 million a year. Like, players' salaries are pretty much what they are. And, I think Terrence, could he be back on like a 2-year, $7 million deal or a 2-year, $8 million deal like what he signed last time? Sure. Mm-hmm. There's nothing that says he wouldn't be back. The only thing that I would caution people is if that's something that you really like and you want Terrence Davis back.
Yes.
But I'll tie it up very specific. And Jim, other people have asked about the Fox ankle. He's not on the injury report at all. Anyway, back to what I was saying with Terrence. It's very clear that the Kings are going to try to sign Sasha Vezenkov in the offseason. And so that's what I'm hearing. They would like to bring, it's really going to come down to whether Sasha Vezenkov wants to come over or not.
Kimberly's mad at you for that. Sorry, Hammer. Kimberly's
upset
that you just did that. Yeah. Sorry, James. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, people want to watch? That's funny.
No, they can see her. I can see her play. Yeah. Yeah, that's Catalina. That's our squad. Yeah, Catalina's shoe game crazy. She wearing boots today. Yeah, she wearing boots today. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. She got boots today. What are you wearing today? Is it pink?
Sixes. Gold sixes.
Okay.
Anyway, my point was that if you're going to bring Sasha Vezenkov, who is another guy who's 6'8" with short arms and isn't a great defender, you're going to keep running into this problem that you have to find somebody who's 6'9" with a 7'3" wingspan that can defend the paint, and that can maybe block a few shots and steal a few, get some steals. You still need that length and athleticism that this team just lacks. And so it's hard to look at Terrence Davis as a 6'4" small forward, or the third shooting guard on your team, especially when you've got Keon Ellis, who will probably be ready to play some game action next year. It's hard to look at how are you going to fill out this roster?
Did someone go see him? Did you tweet that? Did someone go?
Yeah, Jay Triano went to Greece during the All-Star break and spent time with Sasha.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
Aldrich, you bring up Kessler Edwards could be that guy. That's possible, but if the Kings are who they are proving to be this season, and if they want to build off of that, then Kessler Edwards isn't your answer for what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a 25 to 30 minute a game guy, or even a starting level guy that can give you that. And we don't know what Kessler Edwards is or what he's gonna be, but you probably have to, improve that position.
The Keon, I know a lot of people want to see Keon. I like Keon. I don't think he's ready to be as good as Terrence Davis next year. I don't think next year he'll be ready for that.
He's not. Well, I mean, he's a very different type of player. So I mean, he's a legitimate 3-and-D, like shooting guard, but he can't really play the small forward. I think that they'll probably like try to work with him a little bit on point guard skills, just to have him as like a potential backup point guard. But yeah, he's got a lot of defensive capabilities, and he's a really good 3-point shooter. So
Hang on, James. We're coming back right here. Shout out to King Combs right
King
there.
Combs.
I forgot this existed. Should have got one from Bill Bellamy today. Man, if I had known Bill Bellamy was in the studio,
You would have pulled up?
I would have pulled up and said, Bill, you once told us this tremendous story about Any Given Sunday, and when the fight broke out between LL Cool J and Jamie Foxx, and he built this whole story up about how he was about to deliver this big dramatic line, and then the big fight broke out, and then he never got to deliver his line. They just cut the whole entire scene.
Bill didn't get a chance.
Bill didn't get to, and I regret to this day, it was the most captivated I'd ever been in an interview ever.
Yeah.
He had me and J. Ross in the palm of his hand, and it didn't dawn on me to ask
him the line.
What was the line?
No, you could have given him his moment. Go have your moment right now. Give us the line.
Look, the line would have been something like, "Oh yeah."
That wasn't the line. That wasn't the line. If I had known, I would have run in here in the middle of me in the morning and been like, Bill, what was the line?
Security.
Yeah.
Security.
Damn shame what happened to D-Lo. He was shot by Bill Bellamy's security today.
That's right.
Running in. But shout out to me in the morning with Bill Bellamy on, who I assume is performing at the Punchline.
Yeah, Punchline all weekend. Tonight, Saturday, and
that sounds like something Sean Cunningham would do. So if Sean Cunningham is going to the Punchline, please ask him to ask Bill Bellamy what was the line from Any Given Sunday that the fight between LL Cool J and Jamie Foxx interrupted. The biggest failure of my media career by far.
I might go see Bill Bellamy this weekend.
He's very funny. He has never so as captivating as that interview was, my favorite Bill Bellamy memory ever was the first time Adrian Ross asked me to play in the Matt Backer celebrity basketball game. And I check in, probably the last person to check in, rightfully so.
Jaren Jackson Jr.
And I go to the line and I line up next to Bill Bellamy, and Bill looks at me and goes, "Yo, what's up, man?" I say, "Hey, I'm D-Lo," because I was a jackass, and that's how I introduced myself. "Yo, I'm D-Lo at the radio station." He said, "Where? I'm Bill." And I just thought that was cool. It was like, yeah, I know you're Bill Bellamy. Like this was prime, like How to Be a Player, like them flicks. Like I know, like you're Bill Bellamy. I thought that was cool.
Was a moment,
one of the coolest dudes I've ever met.
That was a moment akin to when Michael Jordan met that guy in Barcelona. Remember?
We just hit a wall?
No. Oh. Yeah. Same thing, but he's like, "I'm Michael.
I just hit a wall last night." Yeah, you ain't met this man and tell him about your practice. You sure as hell ain't telling me play bad. What are you doing up so early? Well, I'm filming, jackass. What's it look like? What do you think? I'm about to make this home video that these two idiots in Sacramento are going to recite for the next 40 years. That's the part that got cut.
That's the one.
They only aired that on The Last Dance. That's the part that got cut.
There was something else I was going to say. It had nothing to do with the Kings, but I can't
remember. That adds up.
Don't quote me here.
It's 3:36 on a Friday, man. We're feeling
really
it.
Important too. I'm mad I missed it.
Well, okay. Well, when James is in the middle of a point and it pops back in your head, just blurt it out.
Just go ahead and blurt it out.
Just blurt it out. Hammer, how you feeling about tonight's game?
I don't know.
Los Angeles Clippers.
Like the Clippers, they're a veteran squad. They're physical, but they just haven't been together. They just did some weird news team assemble thing and added 4 rotational players, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But I think it's better to catch them here early than it is like 3 weeks from now when they've had time to sort of sit in the pot together. And the Kings play them twice, right? They play them today, then they've got the 2 games against OKC, then they go back to LA. Or they come home to play
They come here.
the Clippers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where I think you want to play them while they're trying to, before they realize who Russell Westbrook is, that you want to play them then.
Wow.
Yeah, and like see how it goes. See how it goes. Sorry, D'Lo. Like this is that moment where you're like, oh, they don't know who he is yet. Oh, all right.
That's cold, man. That's cold. I don't condone that, man. Don't do that to Russell. Don't do that to Russell.
Like scrub, man. Look, I know I'm high on Russell Westbrook, and I love Russell. That's not going to change. Like, it's literally not. I don't care if he averages 2 points per game next year. Like, I love that dude. I love what he stands for. I love his game. I love the whole thing. Y'all talk about that dude like he's terrible.
Yeah.
You, Trista.
Yeah.
Tristan in a little bit more roundabout way. But y'all talk about that dude like he's terrible.
I'm the only one on your
terrible. Side. He can put up stats. But can he win? And that's the question. I mean, like, he's got to be the answer to winning. Well, he hasn't been able to in a couple of years. So
the Wizards went to the playoffs.
He led the Wizards to the playoffs. Like, that team sucked.
Okay.
It was sorry. The Rockets were in the playoffs. That was a bubble year. Before that, he was at OKC going to the playoffs with nobody.
Y'all had Russell Westbrook in the Oklahoma City Thunder in the gutter, and that dude won MVP his first year and took that team to play. Oh, he won the MVP, only won 46 games. He won 46 games with that team.
Yeah. No, I mean, but
we've seen a lot of it to the Clippers.
I think he can be.
I don't even think he can be.
Yeah,
this is going to be the best Russell Westbrook we've seen all year.
He can be because he's going to still want to be Russ, and he's still going to want to play 30-something minutes a game. And if that's not who he is for that team, I don't think he's ready to accept that that's not who he is. So, I mean, we're going to have to see. Because he wouldn't do it with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. He wouldn't accept who he was, and he looked
around at that roster and was like, "This team sucks. I'm one of the best players here."
Yeah, but he's always gonna think that in every room.
Y'all are starting Patrick effing Beverly above me.
Embarrassing. That was and he did come off the bench for the Lakers. He came off the bench.
He literally did everything they asked, and they still blame the entire failure of a season on him.
I can't wait for them to not make.
Oh man, same. But James doesn't host a Locked On Clippers podcast or a Clippers Beat podcast or a
no.
What's the street down there?
It's probably it's not La Cienega. It's
La Cienega vibes. Figueroa vibes.
Figueroa vibes.
So I say this. James, one thing that was frustrating, like both of us earlier, was you looked at the NBA slate tonight. There isn't a more intriguing game tonight than the Kings and the Clippers. And it's like it's literally the 3 seed versus the 4 seed. It's nowhere to be found on national television. The NBA decided to do nothing about this. They're airing Oklahoma City and a Kevin Durant-less Phoenix Suns team instead. When you have this, what I believe is a gem of a game to showcase in front of the NBA world tonight, and they refuse to do it. And I think part of that is because they still don't think what the Kings are doing is real. Now, I'm not saying that the Kings are going to win tonight, but I think we see a game akin to the second one we saw against Dallas a week ago. I think they're in tonight with the Clippers.
I mean, this is a game that, like, it's a measuring stick of sorts. It's like you look at this 4-game stretch or even like this 6-7 game stretch. This is so crucial to who the Kings want to be. Like, this is, are you going to be fighting for the 3? Or are you going to be fighting for the 6 to hold on to the 6? That's what I think we'll know a lot more about this team when you get done with the 2 OKC games, when you get done with the 2 Clippers games, and you got the Pelicans. Like, it's tough. You've got some games, but it's all against teams that you're supposed to be competing with. and some of which you should be better than. And it's going to be a measuring stick of sorts because they have to show that this is who they are, that they can fight through a stretch like this and, get up to 35, 36 wins by the end of the 5 games or something. It's definitely, for me, I want to see who they are against a team like the Clippers. And like the Clippers have been they're like the paper champions. They have been for a long time, but they never actually, turn out to be great when it matters. So we want to see if this is just another version of that, of paper champions, or if they can put a team together here in the final 25 games and coach them up and get them on the same page and get them ready to like make a title run.
It's harsh for the Clippers. I wish people would tell the whole story.
Thank you, Doc.
They were in the bubble, and then Kawhi tore his ACL in back-to-back years. It's not fair.
They were in the bubble, and Patrick Beverly was on their team. So those two things go hand in hand.
There's that.
Yeah.
I look at this Kings team, and we talked about Terrence Davis and what he said. We talked about earlier Domantas Sabonis and what he had to say after the game. Just something simple like, no, we're never really worried. We knew once we were going, once we got going, everything was going to be okay. I told Damian, this team is extremely confident. I think the thought that they're going to fold under the pressure, they're going to fold under these 24 games left, I don't think that's the way this team is built. You look at Terrence Davis and what he said, I think he speaks for the team. I think they all recognize what's going on. And I'll take it a step further. I think they're ready. I think they can taste it. Like, where a lot of people are like, is it going to be too much for them? They haven't been here. And I understand that thought. I kind of think the opposite. I think they can taste it. I think they want to get this done. Somebody like De'Aaron Fox, I think they can taste it. That's part of the reason why I think they're going to come into the game tonight looking to compete, looking to maybe make a statement that, no, we're here. We're right here. We're going to finish this thing off, Sacramento. Don't worry. We're going to finish this off. We're going to show you by the way we compete and play tonight.
Yeah, like with the point you made earlier, I can agree with you, but I can also tell you that even if they are ready, there's still a chance that they're fighting for the 6th seed and trying to avoid the 7th. It's just that's the way the NBA works. So, while I don't think that they are going to fold, and I don't think that they're just going to be bad down the stretch, and I'm going to watch like a 37-win team, and they might win 4 games the rest of the way type deal. That's not what I think at all. But if you go 500, if you go 3 games over 500, whatever it is, like that, none of that ensures that you're going to be the 3rd seed or the 4th seed or the 5th seed. Like, this is going to be a dogfight. There are a bunch of good teams. So it's not just that, the Kings can show up tonight. They can play a great game. They can lose by 3. And so that's how I look at this. And I'm not like trying to point out that the schedule is tough just to say that, oh, they're going to lose so many games. Say, like, the schedule's tough. You can play great basketball and still lose a handful of games that you wish you didn't. And it's not one person's fault or it's not that they let anyone down. It's just that you went up against a team that was good, like you're good, and you got beat. And so that's why I'm not like trying to be apprehensive or I'm just trying to keep it like on the level. And like, yeah, I get what you're saying.
We don't want that.
Hey,
because here's the other thing. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna point out, because we always point out the standings. They closer to the 2 than the 10. We don't ever talk about that. They closer to the 2 than the 10. They closer to 2 than the 7.
And here's my 2 things. One, James said dogfight. We've got to stop this. We've got to stop this. We literally had dogs fighting on the show earlier, and then we got James bringing up dogfight. We've got to stop this.
It's funny because when I hear the term dogfight, I know it has such a negative connotation.
It's terrible.
It does, but that's not what I think when I think dogfight. When I think dogfight, I think like World War II fighter pilots, like battling in the air.
Top
It's
Gun.
a dogfight.
There you go. It's Top
Yeah.
Gun. I got you.
Also, you guys think about dogfight as like an orchestrated like we're fighting these dogs. Sometimes dogs just fight.
Yeah, it's what Tristan's dogs were doing earlier.
Like,
Just
Oh,
got
my-
into a fight in the middle of our
Yeah,
segment.
my dogs fight.
It's
Yeah.
not a set up thing. Sometimes dogs just fight. When they fight, they get after it.
Yeah, and again, I don't even think of the term in that way. I literally, I'm thinking like, you know, like a battle. It's gonna be a battle in the air. It's gonna be like two groups of going at it, and like this is gonna be tough.
Well,
It's-
here's the thing that doesn't apply to the Top Gun dog fights is you talk about this team could go 3 games over 500 the rest of the way and be fighting for the 6th seed. I don't know this because this is not my bag and this is not what Stacey Kaufman pays me to do. I don't feel like the math checks out on that. If they go 3 games over 500 the rest of the way, they're almost certainly the 6th spot because
They're
they
like
would have
4.
had to have beaten somebody who is in the vicinity of them as these teams keep playing each other along the way. James, I know your heart doesn't want to get hurt again. Come on, man. Come on, James. This is it.
They go
This
3
is
games
it.
over to finish the season. They're like the 4th seed.
This is it, James. This is the moment right here.
I'm just saying, like, I'm just trying to keep it real and make sure that people are understanding that it's not a bummer. If you go into tonight's game and you get drubbed by 30, and then that becomes a trend for the next 3 games, then like we're gonna have there's a problem.
Literally hasn't happened one
Hasn't
time
happened.
this year.
I agree, but what I'm saying is that that's not what I expect.
You're hurt.
What I expect is for this team to fight and to give it a good game each and every night, but that still doesn't mean anything.
Let's
Like,
hug. Come on,
yeah.
virtual hug, James. Come
Virtual
on,
hug.
Wrap your arms
how
around
about
me.
a
Come
hug?
on, Hammer. Let's go.
That's funny.
This team, I know, and this was, but this actually to go all the way back to the original thing that you brought up when you were talking about what Terrence said last night. That's the way, that's why that clip has resonated. That's why that quote has resonated with so many Kings fans, because literally every Kings fan is feeling exactly what Terrence Davis was talking about. The weight of these next 25 games and what they mean. And we talked about this leading into it. We're going to overreact to everything. We're going to overreact to wins, to losses, to the amount they win, to a first quarter, to a fourth quarter. Because every game has such weight to it.
And real quick, James. See, I feel like, and I don't know if this is exactly what you're saying, but we heard the same thing and heard 2 different things at the same time. I didn't hear weight. I heard anticipation. We're at the precipice of doing something that hasn't been done here in 2 decades. Like I recognize it. Let's finish it. Like I didn't hear, damn, like, oof.
Well, no,
Oof.
I think I guess it's a different interpretation of the word weight. Weight as if he's dragging it behind him, or a weight as if we know, like you
feels
feel
it
it
heavy.
You feel
I think
it.
he feels it as in I can't wait to get there. That's how I took it.
Okay.
I think he feels it. Like he's walking out there and he's looking around that arena, and he knows that he feels the same way that everyone else does.
As evidenced by his 3,002 turnovers.
Yeah, like we've got to get this. That's what he feels like.
He's excited.
He's excited, but
You're
he's also
excited.
it's going through his mind of like how big of a moment this is, and it's really cool for a guy who, I mean, he's only been here I guess 2 years now, right? So it's not like he's like a king for 5 or 6 years, like the Harrison Barnes, Rashawn Holmes, De'Aaron Fox group. He hasn't been here that long, but you know that like he understands the community. It feels like he gets the community side of it maybe as much or more than other people do.
Well, I and that may be true. I think De'Aaron gets it. He's just never going to vocalize it. The first time De'Aaron vocalizes it, if he vocalizes it at all, is when it's over. It's like I always remember, and I can't remember who said it. I want to believe it was Tim Duncan, but I don't know. The San Antonio finals that they won. Everyone said all year San Antonio's got to get back there. Like they had the tape out for them. The trophy was ready, and then Ray Allen hits that 3. Like they wouldn't acknowledge that they wanted to get back to that moment. They didn't want to acknowledge that they needed to write that. They didn't want to acknowledge that all year until the second that game ended and the Spurs were NBA champions again. They were like, we knew we had to get back here. Yeah. We couldn't let what happened last year be a defining moment in our legacy. We had to get back here, and we had to have this moment. De'Aaron is not, I don't believe De'Aaron is going to address 16 years or a playoff drought or anything of that sort. And if he does, he's going to do it the moment it ends.
You know, in a way, he has addressed it for like 4 straight years, 5 straight years coming into this year. Like it's been a question that's been asked of him so many times. And he's always said, like, look, if
I got a bunch of bums around me, what do you want me to do?
No, he keeps saying, if I can be the one, if I can be the one that puts us over the top, that snaps the streak, if I can be part of that team, then we'll be legends here. He gets that. But he hasn't said it this year because he said it so many times before and it didn't happen. And so that might be why you're not hearing it this time. And it might be why Harrison Barnes is clearly growing a playoff beard, but he won't acknowledge that he's growing a playoff beard. Like, I don't know if he's trying to go out and get another Razor endorsement, but he clearly knows, and he's got something brewing there on his face that I don't even know what it is. And it's like, man, what is happening? He doesn't want to acknowledge it because he did it once before and it didn't work out. And so, yeah, I think the guys that have been here, yeah, they're apprehensive about like speaking it at this point, just because they have talked about it so many times before. You know, DeMarcus Cousins talked about it all the time. You know, if he could be the guy that got them to the playoffs, well, he never was. And so now Fox is, you know, he's got close. The 39-win season where they faded down the stretch, that was, you know, they were close, and he answered that question a bunch of times. And then they ended up missing the playoffs by 8 games. That's how far it ended up being at the end of the day. But you know, I just think that he's been through this too many times, and maybe that's where Terrence hasn't. He hasn't been through this so many times where he's jaded by it, and he just like I feel like it's an honest thing that he feels what's happening and he feels the excitement of the community, and he is an emotional guy. He wears it on his sleeve, so maybe that's part of it. It's that just like the emotion of it is big for him because he's an emotional dude.
And him and Malik are the perfect guys to answer it because like those guys, they just answer questions. Like they don't strategize how they like you ask them a question, you're going to get an answer. Those are the two perfect guys to address this. You don't need to ask Domas about this right now. You don't need to ask De'Aaron Fox about this. Certainly don't need to ask Harrison or Mike Brown. Ask Malik, you'll get a real answer.
Keegan.
I honestly don't know what you'll get with Keegan if you ask him the question.
Like,
I don't know.
We got Keegan coming out of the break. He had a different energy to him. And
it was his brother. You guys just didn't know it was Chris.
There it is. Yeah.
A good lineup in the AirPods.
James Ham, make sure you become a premium subscriber over at the Kings Beat. Check out the Kings Beat podcast for more great Kings